Waste any time, we're actually going to call to the stage for our first keynote, Mr. Scott Raba. Now, Mr. Raba is the co-founder and chief technology officer of MindSpout, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about the phishing attacks and trends in the era of cloud computing. So please help me welcome to the stage, Mr. Scott Raba.
Good morning, everybody. Is everybody awake? Coffee, caffeine, ready to go? Sure? Smiles, claps, something? All right. Well, thank you, Imran, Lydia, everybody, InterCon, for having me out and giving me an opportunity to speak. I'm sure all of you would agree we could probably spend hours and days talking about phishing attacks and cloud computing. So my purpose is to kind of high level some thoughts, things to consider, and we'll go from there. I feel free to catch up with me afterwards. I'd love to discuss these topics more with you, see how we can potentially work together and how we can help our clients and our businesses. Quick question, does anybody have a pen I could borrow really quick? Thank you, Lydia. Does anybody know what I just did right there? What's social engineering? The idea of getting something from somebody by using the inherent human nature in someone to get a password, a PIN, something like that. So why are we talking about phishing attacks? Well, it's a social engineering tactic. You're trying to get something from somebody who normally would not give it to you, correct? Could it be that it's about money? Well, $500 million was lost or is lost every year in the United States to phishing, and phishing attacks grew by 40% in 2018. A little delay here. Volume, I said 40% in 2018, that's a lot. Is it because cyber thieves are becoming better at crafting their phishing emails? HTTPS, most people think that HTTPS means you're secure. Not anymore. Or is it all the above? Well, since we're losing money, phishing attacks are going up, and the cyber thieves are getting more crafty, we need to be aware as business owners, as IT professionals, as cybersecurity professionals, of the new tricks and methods that are happening. So who are these thieves going after? Well, what you're finding, surprisingly, is they're targeting increasingly SaaS systems, so software as a service. Think your Office 365, your G Suite. Why would they want to go after that? Oh, a lot of it's single sign-on. Think how many times do you go to a website and is asked, do you want to sign in with your Facebook? Do you want to sign in with your Google account? Do you want to sign in with LinkedIn? They get hold of that, they now have access to other things. Of course, the financial institutions, money talks. The idea being is 500 million, if I can get into a financial institution, I can get into your bank account or I can get into whatever and start siphoning off money, I've made my money for the year. I think it was recently in, was it Tallahassee? They had a hack where $500,000 was pilfered off of the payroll accounts for the city of Tallahassee. $500,000, one fell swoop. Fortunately, the employees got paid, so everything was good. So they're still targeting those financial institutions. And in fact, 80% of all attacks have targeted these 5 industries: your SaaS, your financial, your email, your cloud, and your payment services. So how are they doing this? Well, email, it's an oldie but a goodie. How many here, raise your hands, gets spam emails in their inbox every day? Raise your hand, how many people click on the links in there? Thank you for not raising your hands. Thank you. But that's not gonna go away. We live in a digital age where communication is done every day via email. It's not gonna go away. So it is still an oldie but a goodie. One of the newer ones that you're seeing is through messaging apps. How many people here are on Facebook? How many here use Slack or Teams or some variant of that for communication? Some of the new mediums that you're seeing, it's the same MO. It's still the let's use a malicious link, let's use an impersonation, but it's delivered via this newer means of communication. How many of you have millennials that work in your business or no millennials in your business? Those are groups, those are the people that are using these communication apps on an increasingly regular basis. So it's going to become a larger and larger target for that audience. One of the new ones you're seeing is what they call BEC, or business email compromise. And it's very similar, but there's no clickable links in the email. What the design of this is to create a dialogue. So Lydia and I could be having an email exchange about a pen, and the idea being is that I'm going to know as much information as I can about my target as well as who I'm impersonating, so that Lydia thinks I'm very legitimate. After a few exchanges, then I'm going to send, hey, could you click on this link or go to this website? Bam, now I've got you. And shared files. How many people here use a OneDrive or a Google Drive, or File and Sync as they call it now, Dropbox, to share files? How many people here know that those file services will scan for malicious files, but not malicious links? Good. That's what you're seeing is while those services are checking for malware, they're not checking for the malicious links. So if I can get a link to you that routes you to a site that appears to be secure in HTTPS, and it's not, I can now get you hook, line, and sinker. Isn't this fun? All these things that we take for use or for granted for using and make our lives easier are actually vectors for attack. How many people want to unplug and just go away now? So what do you do? Now, after all the bad news, what do you do? How do you help yourself, your clients, your business, your employees, conference hosts? How do you help them? A sobering statistic here is that 90% of all breaches occurred with a click. A single click, a single pen, 90% of breaches. Weakest link in any cybersecurity posture, any IT posture, is always the human element. People are going to prey on the inherent nature for someone to give a pen, open a door, help out the boss. And I'll give you a great example. One of my clients, it's his sister, does some work for him on the side. She gets an email one day saying, hey, could you run out and get some gift cards for me? Here's what I need. So she did, to the tune of $4,000. It wasn't him. Again, email looked legit. It has his name, and $4,000 later, you're in trouble. So you need to educate. Educate, employee awareness. I know it can seem redundant, but statistics show that penetration testers, when they go in and do simulations, after that initial simulation, there's a 20% decrease in people clicking on suspicious emails. It works. And what's it worth to your business to not have an employee clicking on a suspicious link? Multi-factor authentication, everybody hates to hear this. How many people here love doing two-factor authentication? I'm sure everybody's not going to raise their hand. It is a method of helping to prevent this, and that's everything from having a text sent to your phone to I know Google, you can use an app, an authenticator app. There's different things, but the idea is that you want to have a layer concept to your security, defense in depth. More layers, less likely for somebody to get through. Second guess everything. I know it seems kind of maybe paranoid to say this, but you always want to follow up through what they call, it's called channel switching, where you follow up through a different communication method. If you send me an email saying, hey Scott, I need blah, 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 I'm gonna call you and say, hey, did you send this to me? Or if you call me, I may email you or talk to somebody else. But the idea is you always want to double check. That 2-3 minutes could mean the difference between your business being in business again, still, or out of business. And statistics show that 60% of small businesses will suffer some form of a data breach. Of that 60%, 2/3 won't survive 6 months. So look around. Imagine 2/3 of you are hit with some type of attack. And next year, out of that 2/3, we don't see 2/3 of that group. It'd probably be, what, about 5 tables empty? Again, trust nothing, be suspicious, always ask. And what I always say is it's always involve someone that can give you an unbiased opinion. I know I have people who don't know, or my clients who, if they get an email, I'll say, hey, send it to me. Let me check it out. Involve your IT. Ideally, the IT would be aware of what's coming through. You can send them the whatever spam you're getting, suspicious emails, and they're kind of logging that, sending out notices. But always be suspicious. Always ask someone who can give you an unbiased third-party opinion. So how does all this tie into cloud computing? Well, as you see the trend going towards more companies and organizations using cloud computing and less on-site services, how are people going to get into your information? Well, they're going to have to rely on ways of getting passwords, getting credentials to get into that information. So phishing, it comes back to the phishing emails. Some of the trends, and I focused on 4 because there's a lot going on in cloud computing. The growth is accelerating very, very fast. Spending, service, security, and superiority. 4 S's. And like I said, we could talk about probably dozens others. Spending in cloud computing is expected to exceed $200 billion in this year alone. The interest in investment is continuing to grow. This $200 billion is actually a 20% increase from 2018. They don't see that slowing down into the future. This number also aligns with the fact that most people predict that by 2025, 80% of all organizations will have migrated towards the cloud or co-location using hosting a cloud. In some form or another, they're going to have cloud in their business structure. And it found that it was RightScale. They did their 2019 State of the Cloud report. They found that cloud cost optimization was the #1 priority for businesses in 2019. So it's no longer a matter of if we're going to use cloud, it's we are, and how can we optimize those costs to more effectively run our business. I think I have those bullet points in here, I apologize. Who here uses cloud in their business right now? Who here plans on increasing their cloud usage moving forward? Okay. Who here doesn't use cloud but will be using cloud? There we go. So what you're finding in cloud computing is it's going to continue to shape moving away from just purely data-driven to service-driven. Cloud very much was the model of you put your data in the cloud, you put it in the cloud. Okay, but now we're moving from just data in the cloud to how do we use that data? What are the services we can provide to companies with that data? So it's going to be a service provider of people, applications, workloads, and data center. I was traveling with a gentleman over here yesterday from Baltimore to Las Vegas. He's at another conference in here, not InterCon, in Caesars. His company literally takes data, processes it, and spits it back out to companies based on what they want. He's providing a service to them, not just a data aggregator, He's now taking that information, pulling out what they want, optimizing it, and sending it back. Service-driven. The cloud services today offer options, pricing, and overall nimbleness that weren't there 5 years ago. It's allowing organizations to now focus on the applications and the data within the applications, not just where's my data at. And what you're also finding is that industries that are in cloud service provision are figuring out ways to adapt what they're doing to specific industries. So whether it be the automotive industry, the insurance industry, the hospitality industry, how can we shape the data and the services that are being provided to that industry so that we can develop a niche to get in there? And this clicker doesn't like me. This creates a win-win-win. And what I mean by that is that application developers can now benefit from the low cost and scalability of the cloud and the ability to customize to specific business needs. App developers win, clients win, customers win. Security. Who here is in the security field in any realm, any facet? Okay, what type of security, just out of curiosity? Okay. Great point. Or leaving it unlocked, or connecting to a rogue access point. Who else here is in security? Just I want to get, sir. Shoplifting. Here, please take this pen back, Lydia. I don't want to get in trouble. So security was always one of the biggest inhibitors to cloud adoption. I mean, when it first came out, oh, how secure is it? How secure? Data is traversing and you're putting it on basically on somebody else's computer. How secure is it? Always been a big inhibitor to the adoption. However, most people will argue that a properly configured cloud is actually as secure as anything else that you could do because it creates a layered defense, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So security is becoming less of the inhibitor, but vigilance is still there, and companies must still maintain vigilance as it relates to their in-house security and privacy protocols. I mean, you can't rely on, oh, this is okay, the cloud's got taken care of, so we don't have to worry about acceptable use policies or password policies. No, you still have to do your part. And also specifically, who here is in an industry that requires certain governmental compliances? Sir, what compliancy? Okay. Anybody deal with HIPAA? SOX? PCI? All right. So you still have to do your due diligence. You can't just rely. I mean, there is the concept of transferring risk and having a third party that's helping manage, but you still have to do your own due diligence, as has been seen by the hacks of Target, Home Depot, OPM. We could go down and down a list of things that weren't done. But what you're finding, and what most people are saying you're going to see is in cloud and specifically security, is you're going to start to see software-defined perimeters. And what that's going to allow is for companies to deploy a very dynamic security perimeter that helps to isolate software and applications and services. So in a sense, does anybody here understand what a sandbox is? I'm sure you know. Sandbox is just the concept of taking a piece of malware and it gets stuck in a place that it can't go anywhere else. It's isolated from everything. It's a very simplistic definition. The idea of a security-defined perimeter, you're kind of creating that isolation that if something does happen, it can't infect your whole network. Superiority. I'm sure everybody here has heard of AWS and Azure and Google and IBM. They're the four main big players in the cloud industry today. That's probably not going to change a whole lot. Does anybody here use AWS for any of their cloud services? How about Azure, Microsoft Azure? That seems about right, since AWS is still very much the head when it comes to the market share of cloud-based or deployment, and they actually do a lot of government stuff as well. But you're going to find, and what we have seen is that Microsoft Azure is actually making inroads into that market share. Google, with their new cloud CEO, is looking to make Google a bigger player in the cloud market worldwide. So it's happening, and that breeds competitiveness. We'll talk in a minute. They also expect IBM to become the largest hybrid cloud provider in the world. So again, you got four big players. Hopefully, it's like anything else, competition breeds, hopefully, collaboration and innovation. And what you're also going to see is acquisition and mergers. This is very common, bigger companies buying up smaller companies. Actually, the gentleman and I on the plane ride over, we were talking about some of the acquisitions that Google and Microsoft are doing. They're kind of buying up some of these other things, even Salesforce, trying to help round out their services within the cloud platform. And they're just looking to broaden their product offerings, give them the one-up on their competitor. So as I said, competition breeds innovation. This competition, acquisition and mergers, the push to innovate new things, new product service offerings, it's going to help. It's competitive pricing, better service offerings, and hopefully not only a win scenario for you as the consumer and the business owner, but for the clients you serve, and being able to offer them and the service stacks that you're able to offer down to your clients. Who here resells cloud products or cloud services to their clients? Would you like to have more services that you could offer in a service stack to your clients? Would that be good? I mean, the idea is, and that's what you're going to find, is that ultimately cloud vendor success is not going to be determined by necessarily cost, but customer satisfaction and time to market for products and services. The more you have, and now obviously you have to kind of funnel that to within what your company does as a whole. But if you have the leg up on your competition by offering this one other service that maybe other companies don't have, oh, we lost the screen, then that could potentially mean the difference between you getting this client and your competitor getting that client. So now, I wanted to leave some time. I know I'm a little bit short. I want to leave some time if we're allowed to have questions. I'll be the first to tell you, I don't know everything, but I will gladly have discussions and try to answer to the best of my ability. And I do want to thank everybody for taking the time to be here first thing in the morning. I know it's hard to get up, and especially if you flew in late last night or got here early this morning, but I do appreciate the time to sit and listen to me chat a little bit with you. So, does anybody have any questions? Please.
We have a little bit of time for some questions. If anybody has any questions, I can bring the mic over. I didn't bring my tennis shoes, but look, we got you.
Good morning.
Yes.
You mentioned quite a bit about the tech side, and in one of your very first slides talked about the human element really being the greatest exposure. What kind of recommendation would you give on how often these reminders need to go out to your employees in order to be able to stick and be successful?
That's a great question. And I don't think there's any cookie cutter answer, to be honest with you. There's some variables in there. You as a business owner know, or a manager know your employees better than I do. Some people say once a year. Some people say quarterly. My opinion is that initially, more is better than less to kind of create that mindset of what to look for, to be cautious, to be suspicious, and then tailor back. Now, how many here would be excited about going to security awareness training in their office? Yeah. I've read a lot of articles that talk about doing different initiatives, like rewards programs for not clicking on links and forwarding them to the proper people. It's, again, it's what fits the culture in your organization, but I definitely think early on more is better than less, and then adjust accordingly. Does that help? Other questions? You can just yell it out.
This is in reference to the point you made earlier about Facebook login or Google login. What if you're a subscriber of those services and you're offering that as part of the applications that you're offering to your customers? What, in addition to what these companies are already offering, should we be looking at in terms of providing security?
To just make sure I understand, in terms of how to protect clients who are using Facebook in the business for whatever. Some of it comes back to awareness. I'll be the first to tell you that if it wasn't for the fact that I had to have a Facebook personal page to have a business page, I wouldn't have Facebook. There's 70 some security settings in Facebook that they can change at any time. So I still think it comes back to that education. I think letting them know that, hey, Facebook and Facebook Messenger are now mediums that are being used to target people, so that you need to be suspicious when you get a random message from someone that you don't know, or you and I are exchanging communications and we know each other. You're like, hold up, that message doesn't have the sound like Scott's. There's no silver bullet. There's nothing that I can say, press that button and Facebook magically is safe again. It's constantly evolving. It's a constant cat and mouse game. I think it's a consistent staying on top of what the trend is, what attackers are using, and then educating the people who are using those tools, those communication mediums, to, hey, be aware, this is what's been happening. That's where organizations like CERT and NIST, who are constantly putting out different security vulnerabilities, can be helpful. That's where involving gentlemen like myself or other people in here, or like yourself, who are in security, who can let you know, hey, just notice that this is what's going on. You might want to let your employees know by sending out an email, just so you know, here's what's happening, this is what it looks like. Does that make sense? Yeah, it's education, it really is. Yes, sir. He's going to get his workout today.
Hi, Scott.
Hello.
Actually, it's not really a question, but it's really to emphasize the fact that education is really important, just beyond like cloud, etc. Because I receive so many like phone calls, like fake phone calls about like my social security number that I've been, suspended, or my Google ads. There's an issue with that, and basically they're trying to fear people and call them back straight away. So how can we like go beyond and do this education to include the fact that it's even like people calling you directly?
Good point. And that was actually something that when I was putting together the presentation, there was a statistic that said, I think it was 70 or 80% by 2020 of phone calls will be robocalls. So it's like phishing attacks. It's not going away. It's the modern day junk mail in your post office or mailbox. One of the trends you're seeing, and I've seen it personally, on your phone, they will use the area code of what your phone is. So like for instance, mine's 202, Washington, D.C. based. So I get a lot of robocalls or spam calls with a 202 prefix. The idea is that, hey, it's 202, it's local, I should trust it. No. It's insurance, it's this, it's that. Again, you're right, it is education, and I just gave you a little nugget. Hey, your employees, your staff, be on the lookout when you get a phone call with a prefix that is the same as your phone prefix, but it's not a number that's saved or you recognized, probably spam call. What is one thing you could do for a phone number that you don't recognize other than hit decline? If it's important, what is that person going to do? They're going to leave you a message. So, again, no magic button to press it. I mean, I read recently the government's trying to crack down on robocalls. That's been going on for years. It's not going to stop. They'll find another way. But hey, ladies and gentlemen, in MindSpout, I want you to be aware if you get a phone call with a 202 prefix, it could be spam. Just be wary. It may be the IRS calling. They need your Social Security number. Yes. Any other questions?
I'd like to know why biometrics haven't made it down to, right here,
Okay.
why biometrics haven't made it down to the consumer level. I want to be able to log into a website with my eye. And I mean, I use password managers, but there's really no technological cost to have that biometric in a laptop, or do you see a future where, because the hacking's not going to be done from a biometric standpoint?
Some of it is there. iPhone, facial ID, you can log in. Some of your Windows 10 computers, if you have the webcam, you can log in with your retinal an eye scan or a facial scan. The problem with biometrics is the false negatives. And they have done studies. There is a certain percentage of people that no matter what, it will not recognize a fingerprint scan or retinal scan. It's just the way it is. And I think as the technology continues to get better, yes, it will continue to make itself down to the consumer level. There's just one of its cost right now, truthfully. It doesn't seem like it'd be much, but there's still a cost to implementation and just being able to better perfect the recognition itself. But it's coming. I mean, it's there. I mean, think about all the high security facilities that use it and it's definitely there. It's time. It's time. It'll get there. Then everybody's going to be wanting to, cut your fingers off to get into your whatever. So who knows what's going to happen? Who knows? Any other questions or
I
wrap it up?
hate to cut this short. Fortunately, I do believe Mr. Scott Raba will be around. So if you have any further questions for him, make sure to snag him during lunch.